Hey there, and very good to see you. Welcome to today. Let me just move a couple things around on my screen here. Well, we have an interesting one for you today. As part of our series that we began last week, we're going to talk really all about interviewing today. But if you missed part of last week's series, don't hesitate to go back over my YouTube channel or Facebook or LinkedIn, depending on where you're watching this, and really learn how to take back control for each part of the series. There is the resume renovation lecture. There's the LinkedIn for job search and career lecture. Also the career evolution, building your career's next leap through social media marketing. All that is available over on my YouTube channel, as well as the other couple sites. If you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. All my details are over on my SelfRecruiter website. Let's jump into today. Let me get a little coffee to start off the day. Interview intervention. What's interesting, when I named this, I thought of what people really need to help them with their interview. And it's really the concept of an intervention, someone to stop us before we go in and do it the wrong way again. So these are really all of the secrets that I used as a recruiter to help my candidates really be their standout. But these are things you can do for yourself to be a standout. Now, we, of course, are still in a pandemic world, and hopefully someday a post-pandemic, more endemic world. Well, when it really gets here, let's see. We're going to include all about video interviewing because, of course, remote work and video work has become very, very important as well. Your interview is about influence. It's about the ability to use nuance in communications to convey and sell your story. I don't know why we get upset when we go into an interview and they challenge us. Well, you don't have this background. You haven't done this before. I haven't, but I'm sure you'll meet a lot of people that have done those things in the other candidates. What I bring to the table is something very, very different. It's actually why I will be the most valuable person for this role. That's your job. Your job is to overcome the objections they throw at you, which is the process of convincing them that you're the right one. Now, our personal branding is going to help us in that. And personal branding includes the resume from Resume Renovation Lecture last week, or really creating your LinkedIn profile to become the polar opposite of your resume, a three-dimensional sales brochure all about yourself. Lets people look over the shoulder to see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending, all that interesting stuff about your profession. But it also involves this: how you're going to present yourself, what you're going to say about yourself, how you'll choose to engage others. We're a product. And the interview is where we go and put our product center stage, like up on a little platter. Look at my product. Here's my product, whatever that product may be, except you're the product. And it's very difficult for most of us to go into that type of environment and simply sell ourselves. Oh, we may feel like we've done that in the past, but not really, not very often. So let's focus in on all of those things that really affect our brand. All of these things you see here, every single thing that could potentially separate us out from others. That includes all of your messaging and everything else. So, let's think about all of those things and make sure that we're starting the process with a nice cohesive brand across all of these pieces that will set up your interview to be much more successful. Now, in terms of how successful your interview is, if you put in the right preparation, you'll have some great success, but you have to have some clear understanding. Your interviews are not an interrogation. Well, it may feel like it, but they're a sales meeting. It's about you being able to take back control because it's a sales meeting. You're there to make your case. It's a sales meeting. I don't care what it feels like. So ignore if it feels like an interrogation. Your job is to be excited about you. Really, the concept of drinking just enough of the Kool-Aid that you're a true believer in what you bring to the table. You have to believe in yourself more than the next 5 or 6 people that want that same job. Now, the biggest concept that will help you in prepping for any interview is firmly grasping the idea that it's your job to walk in the door or walk into the Zoom meeting or wherever venue, phone, telephone, whatever it might be, and to literally teach them how to select you. Part of the interview process that most job seekers really don't have a clear understanding of is the interviewer themselves is not an expert at interviewing. Oh, they may be an expert at their area, but they're certainly not an expert at interviewing, even if they have an HR on their title. You know who's a real expert at recruiting? Interviewing outside recruiters. Outside recruiters who have to interview literally thousands of people to find just a handful of the best of the best. That's not typically how HR works, but that is how outside recruiters work. Well, within HR or the decision maker, whoever you're meeting with, it's your job to walk in the door and persuade them, teach them. You're not just a good qualified candidate, because then you're interchangeable, but really you're the very best one for the role. So that becomes a trap of becoming cookie cutter perfect. Oh, just be cookie cutter perfect. Okay. If you're cookie cutter perfect, I'll take number 3. Number 3, I'm also going to pay you less. You don't want less? Okay, I'll take number 2, take number 5. Doesn't really matter. You're all interchangeable, cookie cutter perfect. Now we see the problem with cookie cutter perfect. You do need to acquire the ability to be cookie cutter perfect, but also at the same time, position yourself as somehow different, exceptional. So you have to cover both of these concepts at once. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. Resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if your career brand is suffering from bad storytelling, and most resumes or most LinkedIns that I see suffer from bad storytelling, people that are so emotionally close to the journey they just came through, they don't know how to tell that story any other way that's still truthful. It has to be still true, but they just don't understand how to tell it a different way than they experienced it, a more valuable way, a better way. That's what I do for my clients. Since I'm not emotionally attached, I can step back with perspective, hear the whole story, pull just the right pieces together. If you need help, check my SelfRecruiter website under the services tab. Let's keep moving here. I'll tell you a little bit more about the rest of my background as we go forward. Some things that'll help you, my book, SelfRecruiter Changing the Rules. Big believer in changing the rules. Let's change any rule that does not work for us. Well, that rule works for me. I love it. I love it. That's a great rule. Don't touch it. Oh, that one doesn't work for me. You know what? That's meant for somebody else. And I'm going to step over the railing or step around the little guard, whatever it might be, because that rule isn't for me. By the way, you can get my book on Amazon and, of course, over on my SelfRecruiter website. And didn't I forget to put my Do Not Disturb on? Sorry about that. At least it's quiet. Also acts as a wonderful roadmap for your job search, really helping you navigate many of the challenges that are there. All of the secrets I learned in recruiting are right in that book. Other resources over on my homepage. This is my SelfRecruiter website. Halfway down the page, you can see a very special version of my LinkedIn lecture, one where you can see me large, or you can see the slides large. Really, you can use the whole thing as a little bit of a start and stop tutorial where you improve your profile. Also on my LinkedIn itself, click on my articles and get to a few articles that will also further what I teach you in lecture and help solve some of the problems that you're facing. Now let's get to today. This lecture, part of all of my lectures, comes under this umbrella of being a self-recruiter. How are you going to become a really great recruiter that looks after just one individual, you? So you're going to have to be the great recruiter that looks after you. You're going to have to be a strategist. You're going to have to do a little planning and all of that. You're going to have to also be the presenter and speaker. Oh my gosh, there's so many things to juggle. Means we're going to have to network in a very different way. That's the LinkedIn part. So make sure you do watch my Building Your Professional Network with LinkedIn and how to use it for your job search lecture. But it also requires keeping one eye constantly on the toughest competitor imaginable. 4, 5, 6 people that would probably scare you out of going after that job. Oh, they're going after, oh, forget it. Yeah, that person. You know, we can beat those people very easily. They may look frightening to us because they're sparkly and shiny and whatever it might be. But those individuals tend to suffer from ego and arrogance. And, you know, they don't prepare. They wake up in the morning and they go, oh, who are they going to hire? They're going to hire me. I mean, why would they look elsewhere? And then they don't actually do their homework. A little bit of strategy, planning, a little bit of forethought. You can outmaneuver them very, very quickly. So let's keep one eye on those seemingly scary people. You know, we don't like to see the job, go after the job. Maybe even from that, get the interview. Oh, wouldn't that be nice? You know, if it really only worked that way. But it's really not that easy. It's much more difficult. We hit that, excuse me, a little bit. We hit that darn button. And so rarely does it really say apply. Almost always says submit, all capital letters, until we're so submissive. It's like a Friday night waiting for that phone to ring. Oh, it's going to ring. It's going to ring. Yes, but when it does, it's going to be a telemarketer. It's the way it works. So I want you to think about maybe doing something different that I teach in my LinkedIn lecture, and that's going right to the decision maker so you don't get ruled out by an HR person that really doesn't understand your background. That can leave us in a very unhappy place because somehow they don't quite get you. But if you had a 90-second conversation with the decision maker, they know exactly why you're right or not for this job. So you can't talk yourself into a job you're not right for. But that changes the equation. It's not very difficult to get to the decision maker. Watch the LinkedIn lecture. Now, in terms of prepping for our interview and all that energy we're going to put in, we have to think more unusually, unconventionally, in more unexpected ways. That will begin to change the equation of diminishing returns simply by changing the rules. I'm here to be interrogated. I'm here to be questioned. Really? That's not why I'm here. I'm here to present and sell and persuade you, because that is what an interview is about. We're this product. We have to get them to desire our product. Here's most of our competitors. Don't take this to the bank too quickly, because a lot of our competitors are not this, but the bulk of our competitors, probably more than half of them, are only mediocre, of only moderate quality, average, middling, middle of the road, undistinguished. A lot of things here, no great shakes, not up to much, bush league. You know what you have? I mean, it's kind of depressing, really, but if this is the bulk of the workforce, but is there a silver lining here? I can see a silver lining. You know what you have to be if you don't want to be part of this group? Just a little bit better than mediocre. A little bit better than mediocre, you're ahead of all these people. What if you simply put a little heart and soul and energy and passion into your work life? You'll naturally float right to the top, be 1, 2, 3% of the people in your field. So let's be the opposite of mediocre, and let's have some passion for what we do. Now, if this passion is true, if it is real and not just invented, there's story, there's depth. So how are you going to win them over? It's by telling truthful but really great story about what you've experienced, so they can have a transference of sense, like, oh, you handled this for this level brand, you could take that skill right over to my project. Those skills become transferable when we tell the story the right way. So let's think about your interview itself. It can happen in person. It can happen over the telephone. It can happen by video, Zoom, Meet, whatever technology might be the next one they want to send along our way. And each one of these provide an advantage and disadvantage. Remember, overall, my advice to you on interviews is you are not there to answer questions, even though that seems ridiculous. Yes, I'm of course going to answer some questions mixed into my lovely conversation, but I am there to sell and present. I'm not there to answer your questions, although I won't give them any of that attitude. I'm going to charm and disarm and remove obstacles in the discussion, because that's our job in an interview, to teach them how to select us, to demonstrate how obstacles disappear. So we're going to use this device of the Q&A. They may be 20 questions, question answer, but you know what? That's not my style. That's not a good style. So they may take that style because of their inexperience, but I'm going to answer back more conversationally, trying to draw them into an actual exchange rather than a analytical doctor visit looking for symptoms type things. So that means you're going to have to answer like a politician. I don't care what question they ask me. Now, don't mishear that. I care deeply what questions are asked, but if I don't like that question, I don't care about that question. I'm going to answer the question I wished I were asked instead. Not any good politician, and it's hard to say there's any good ones these days with what's going on, but anybody that understands that dynamic automatically does this like breathing. Take Tim Cook, who's running Apple right now. I think it was about maybe 3, maybe 4 springs ago. He was giving a commencement, or not a commencement. He was giving a talk to a college class. This was not a commencement address, but it is up on YouTube because, of course, everyone has those phones and videotaping. And someone in the back of the class asked a very inappropriate question, which is, when is it okay not to listen to our professors? Thank you for that lovely question. Oh, professor, you have such engaging students. I don't know if he said that piece of it, but what Tim did was what any good politician does, and that is they reframed the question instantly. And I said, well, what I think you're asking me, there, I just reframed it. What I think you're asking me is, when is it okay to break the rules? which is a much clearer way to ask the same question that the person really just asked as a student. And then Tim went on to say, what I think you should rarely follow the rules. If you'd like the future you're dreaming about, you're going to have to get out there and create it. So to me, you should be writing the rules, or something very, very close to that is what he said, but you can look that up on YouTube. So I want you to think about being this politician where necessary, not to be evasive, but to properly frame and persuade. You're going to have to know yourself too, because you're there to sell yourself. So why is it that you are more valuable than the next 5, 6 people that really want that job? They're those people that are really nipping at your heels. Now, the part you may not like, because you may be going, I'm perfect for this job. Over the years, I've heard that so many times. Oh, I'm perfect for this job. Okay, let's take a deeper look. You think you're perfect. If you are capable and qualified for the job, hope you heard those words, capable and qualified. This does not mean you've done that job before, by the way. Capable and qualified. If I believe you to be capable and qualified for the job, that's terrific. But I do not hire you because you're capable and qualified. Again, don't mishear that. I would not consider hiring anyone I did not feel capable and qualified. So that is certainly not a criteria piece for me. That's like tying my shoes. Everybody I speak with should be capable or qualified, or I'm wasting my time. What it really comes down to is, number one, above all other things, is chemistry. Number two, above all other things than chemistry, is confidence, confidence in you. That's before the credentialing, the background, the work product, who you've done it for, before all of that, assuming you're capable and qualified. So we're going to have to focus a lot of our discussion on creating engagement, but it's a whole lot closer to that style engagement than the first style of engagement. So let's go back to our story and understand we can answer a question literally dull, dry, like the Sahara Desert, or I could tell you a story that sets the stage, creates the lighting and mood and atmosphere. So a lot of that revolves around the idea of why are we interesting, or what makes us tick. And about those two items, they could have something very closely to do with what we do professionally, or could literally have nothing to do with what we do professionally and still be a huge sell piece. So we'll talk more about that as we move forward, prepping for today. All of this together requires a pretty substantial paradigm shift in the way you've interviewed before, the way you've presented and sold yourself before, or the way you've sold story. Or distill it down even further, the way you've just answered questions in the past without thinking about the integrated effect of those questions and answers. So paradigm shift, this idea that everything's going to have to change, is very, very important. As we think about all the things we might like to speak about in our interview, you want to take all of that content and really filter it through a singular lens. That lens is, among all these elements I could talk about, what rises to the level of being one of those things that could be one of the very best things that convince them it's the best business decision they're going to make today, if they choose to hire me. So look carefully. You may have done all these things, and that's terrific, but you don't need credit for everything. What you need credit for are the amazing pieces, so they see you as constantly amazing. Now, if we're going to, I've talked a little bit about this differentiation. Let me grab a tissue here. A little differentiation between cookie cutter perfect and exceptional, and how you get both. Sorry. That comes down to communications mastery. And that means we're going to have to use our soft skills. Our soft skills, by the way, in case we don't know what those are, that's our part of our emotional intelligence quotient, our EQ. It involves all of these things here that I really don't have to read to, that you can see. But of all the things on the list here, look at these last two, the friendliness and optimism. Now, even a public speaker, yep, I deal with anxiety. A lot of people deal with anxiety. Anxiety is one of my issues. So friendliness and optimism when you're filled with anxiety. Okay, well, we can use technique to get there, of course. But I am a Sagittarius, which is an eternal optimist. So really, for me, the sun will come up tomorrow, even if it's a nuclear holocaust. And I sure hope it isn't. But that sun's coming up tomorrow, no matter what. That's the friendliness and optimism that begins to charm and disarm people as you begin to present and sell to them, as you begin to uncover what their issues or problems or the things that they'd like to change, and you begin to put yourself right in there as the solution. That's about influence. So let's imagine your interview is Tuesday, 10 a.m. First thing you want to do, like, and it's Wednesday right now, so that means next Tuesday, 10 a.m. So if they've sent me a list of who I'm going to meet with, well, first question is, did they send you a list of everyone you're going to meet with? Yeah, they sent me two names. That doesn't sound like you know if it's everyone or not. Email them back and be sure. No, I already emailed them this morning. Email them again. It's worth it. So looking forward to my meeting next Tuesday with Jack and Jim at 10 a.m. Can you also let me know who else I may be, here's an important word, likely to meet with, so I can fully prepare for the meeting? If you forget to include the word likely, they're going to go, I'm not really sure. And you didn't think about how you'd get trapped or how they'd get blocked and how they wouldn't give you information. Otherwise, you would have said likely, and they go, oh, I'm not sure, but probably 2 or 3 of your peers, in addition to Jack and Jim, and maybe Janet over here as well. Okay, I got one more firm name, and I referenced to 2 or 3 of my peers. Well, I can use LinkedIn, the way I teach in my LinkedIn lecture, reverse search the organization, look across the spectrum and see 2 or 3 of my peers. Maybe I see 6 peers, actually. I see 6 people, and I'm going to speak with 2 or 3 of them, and I don't know which. I'm going to have to plan in advance. How do I build chemistry with Jack or Jim or Jill or Jane? Or each one of these people may require some different story. What's their background? What would they relate to? So as part of that process, I'm going to open up each one of their profiles and ask them to connect with a gentle little reminder that I'm about to meet them. So certainly for Jack and Jim, which I know I'm meeting, open up each one and say, put a little connect request and say, oh, Jack, so looking forward to meeting you in my interview session next Tuesday at 10 a.m. And of course, I'd love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Sends it right off. This is a way, a week in advance or several days in advance, of getting them to go click and open up your sales brochure. Oh yeah, I'm meeting John. Click, click, click. What was the background? Into the full rich story, selling themselves right now because of this outreach. Open, ask to connect. By the way, many of them may not connect with you until after the interview. Don't take it personally. The point is to get them to look at you, to figuratively little nudge them, to get them to respond even to the information, if not to you directly. So message itself, you're about to meet me. I'm professionally appropriate, little stroke to the ego, maybe something as simple as this. Do not put too much in there because all of this demonstrates whether or not you're going to need a lot of hand-holding. If you need a lot of hand-holding, I am certainly not going to hire you. I'm looking for someone who can relieve my burden, take something off my plate, not need additional pieces. So hopefully we're going to get them right over to our LinkedIn from that, and that will nudge them to the completion of their decision process about us. Small little changes change perception and really change everything. Be persuasive. Don't hold back. Now we're going to create an interview plan, because we can talk all day long, but without an interview plan, you're not really going to have something actionable. We're going to drill down to each one of these very, very deeply. So we're going to go quickly on this first screen. Don't be surprised. We're coming back to every one. So a proper interview plan means you have to build an agenda. An interview is the same thing as a sales meeting. You wouldn't go into a sales meeting without a sales plan, would you? Without a strategy and a mapped out idea of how you're going to guide that discussion, how you're going to overcome the objections that you expect, how you're going to convince them that no matter what, you're the right resource. We have to do the same thing for our interview. And you know who's running it? You are. Even though it feels like they're running it, you're running it. So build your agenda. Do a needs analysis. Ooh, scary sales term. Really, it just simply means don't answer questions before you actually ask and reconfirm what you suspect is the actual need. Now, I say suspect the actual need because we get distracted by things called job postings. I call the job posting something else. I call it the list of the irrelevance, because that's a new word with a T and an S. Almost everything on this list is irrelevant to the job. Tangentially connected, absolutely. But that's not a list of the day-to-day of this job. Do the needs analysis. Find out what they really need, not what they advertised. Maybe something, well, I'll tell you when we get to that slide. I'll walk you through the verbiage so you have it. Next thing on this master list is to select and customize our work life stories. Because just as I mentioned, you might meet 2 or 3 of your peers all needing to hear a different story to get your vote or to get their vote for you. You're going to have to prep all of your stories and really have them all ready to choose from. So you go, oh, this person needs this story. Oh, no, they'd like to hear this story. All at the ready. Prep those stories. It's a sales meeting. If there is not a buy sign, you're going to have to tell them what's missing. We'll walk you through how that works. Their job is to object to you, so I hope that doesn't frighten you. You're going to have to overcome those objections. Another scary sales term, closing. Ooh, a lot of people think they know what closing is. Oh, that's for asking for what you'd like. No. In fact, that's specifically not closing. That is really bad sales. That's part of it, by the way. But closing is asking for what you'd like and asking for agreement to it. You must ask for agreement to it, which is where they say no, which is why people are afraid to ask, ask for that piece of it. So I want you to close them on really the concept of why you're the very best one for this role. I'll take you through that language. It's your job to get the next step or get the offer. Let's see how we can drill down here. So let's take the first part, building the actual agenda. It's your meeting. It's not their meeting. So let's decipher this. Let's dissect it. Who are you going to meet with? How are you going to build chemistry with each one of these people? Because they all may require something different. What career stories might be right for this one or that one, or maybe this other one over here wants to hear this other career story. Is there something you can make them jump out of their chair if they hear that? There must be something else you need to communicate to kind of sell you as the very best one. That's the outline of your agenda. The agenda is very, very important. All these pieces have to work together. Then you have to move into the needs analysis. And you have to do the needs analysis before they ask questions. But maybe they're so smooth, they take a sip of their coffee, just like this. And then they go, oh gosh, John, tell me about yourself. I'm like, I wanted to do the needs analysis before you ask me a question. And you've already asked me to tell me about myself. Now, do you think I'd answer that question? Or do you think I'd go do the needs analysis? Well, if you've seen me before, of course, I'm going to sidestep the question very gently, not saying I won't answer it. In fact, I'm going to allude to the fact that I'm dying to answer it. Oh, I can't wait to tell you about myself. Before I do, I'd like to make sure my answers are as focused and as valuable for you as possible. Also, can't have them think we didn't do our homework. Of course, I've done my homework. I've researched the job and everything else, looked at some of the competitors too. But I'd love to hear from your perspective, right? Into stroke the ego. I'd love to hear your opinion, your perspective, your view. What would you like to see change? What pain points would you like to be different? Obviously, this is open because you have a spot for a person, but it's not about putting a warm body into that spot. It's about solving something. So what would you like to be different? And maybe even the last question here is really the most brilliant. Pull out all the other thoughts from them that you can. Then the final thing is, Jack, Jim, Jill, let me ask you one last thing. Of all those people that you've met with for this role, what have you not seen? Now, the reason why that one's so brilliant is they're going to tell you exactly what they have not seen, which is why they have not hired. If they say, I haven't seen A mixed into all the people that I've talked about, oh, that's so interesting. In addition to all the other areas that I bring, I have background in area A. Let's talk about it. My gosh, they're telling you right now what they couldn't find. If you've got it, if you've got some experience, bring it right to the surface. This is how you begin to diagnose what their issues are or how you should shape your conversation in a way that can persuade them and help you. Select and customize our work life stories. Well, which illustrates a certain skill or shows my value or creates interest. You have to sit and match the right stories to the right audience. Think about their background and what would make their work day easier. Of course, they're going to object to you because that's their issue. Every time someone objects to you, and that's just a device to give you more time to talk. The more you talk, the more we can evaluate whether you might be right for this one. So they might go, what was it? John, you haven't worked in our industry. John, you've never held this role before. You haven't worked for nonprofit. You haven't worked for commercial. Whatever it is they could accuse you of, you already know what it is. And they're likely going to vocally do it somehow like I just did. Almost like an exasperation, like, why am I even here? You don't have this background. That is to amp up the pressure on you, put the spotlight on you to answer. Overcome the objection. Now, anytime I get an objection, I prefer to use an agree but disagree technique. That means I find some way, shape, or form to agree to what they just accused me of. And then I disagree with it by what I say next. So they might go, let's say, well, you've never worked in commercial. I haven't. Just like it's a gift from up above. By the way, I can't, if I haven't worked commercial, I can't fake that background. I can't change that background. So I might as well run right toward the target. I don't have that, as if that is something special. And then I sweep it away with my next comments and tell them why I'm so valuable. But I'm sure you'll meet lots of people that have that background in all the other candidates. Everybody else is a candidate. Almost a little bit of too much hitting on the D's there. A candidate. What I bring to the table as an individual, you're always an individual, they're always candidates, is something very different, is something very special. It's also why I'll be the very best one in this role and why I'll make your life easier. Your job is to persuade them. It's not, I can do this, I can do this. Are you here to audition for community theater, or are you here to audition for Broadway? I don't want to hear someone can do it. I want to hear that I'm the one. If you don't know that you're the one, you're not going to get that job. So that's part of the confidence piece of the chemistry and confidence. Now, buy sign, well, there's only 2 buy signs. The buy signs are really simple. One buy sign is, my gosh, I love your background, loved our conversation. I'd like to move you to the next step. Great. Indication that you are getting the next interview. By the way, they do not have to schedule it right this moment. Oh, I'd like that. I'd like that. And you should try to get it scheduled. But they don't have to schedule it right this moment as long as they told you, oh, yes, definitely, we're going to move you to the next level. That's one buy sign. The only other buy sign is, what an amazing find you are, John. I'd love to get your references. We'd love to potentially move toward our next step of an offer stage. Great. An indication for references to move toward offer, or if you've given the references to move toward offer, but I hope you don't give references before they say, we'd like to move toward offer. They don't go too early. Short of moving you to the next interview or referencing that they'd like to do references to move toward offer, no matter how flowery, nice their language is about you, you didn't win. They might go, oh my gosh, John, our conversation today has been mind altering and mind opening. I could see how you could do an amazing job in this role. Sounds pretty good so far. But and then they segue. Oh, but we have a few more people to see. It'll be at least 2 or 3 more weeks. There's the summer vacations are going to interfere, so it'll take a little longer. That's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda, kicking the ball down the road. You did not win. Don't mishear that. Doesn't mean you lost yet, but you didn't win. You didn't win, and therefore your chances of losing go up. So if you didn't win, my advice to you would be, why would you sign off of this interview, or why would you physically leave this interview room? I don't mean to wait there so long that they have to go security, because that's a different issue that's going to get you in trouble. But I mean, use the agree but disagree technique to recertify yourself as the right one. Now, a couple questions can really help them visualize their whole process, kind of as a 2-dimensional timeline, and somehow visualize where I am on it, which will cause them to think about what is wrong or missing from you, which I know is very scary, but that's your chance to overcome it. So maybe it's as simple as, Jack, let me ask you, this is after the nice, but it'll be a few more weeks. Jack, let me just ask you, what have you not heard? Or what have we not discussed? A little bit of positive and negative on the energy there, because we don't know how people's brains are wired. We're all different. That will help you in your decision process for this role. Now, that's pretty good. If you've seen me before, that's not probably quite enough for John himself. I'd like it a little bit more, but that's actually pretty good. That's, very well balanced. I'd like a little more amp to it. Maybe it's as simple as, Jack, let me just ask you, what have you not heard? Or maybe what have we not discussed that would help you in your selection of me as the very best individual for this role? Position, we have to change. It should be role. Candidate, well, we already talked about candidate. Those other people. Let's talk individual. I'll get this slide changed. Let's think about what we're going to say here. This will cause them to think of you as, here's this timeline. They want to think of you as the very best. Then they go, oh, but you're missing area A. They go, well, John, you have a very fine background. I love everything, this, but you seems to me like you might be a little bit weak on area A. Oh, really? Gives me a chance to agree but disagree. That's so interesting. I've actually worked on a number of projects. I've worked on projects such as this, and I've worked on projects such as that in Area A. What would you like to discuss? By the way, full disclosure, I've only worked on 2 projects in Area A. These are literally the only 2 projects I've worked on, but this is not a confessional disclosure. What I said was absolutely true. I've worked on projects such as this and such as that. And yes, they probably inferred that those were representative of much more experience, but those are the 2. Right away, we can solve that problem, overcome the objections, all that stuff. I want you to think your way through this entire list and do the real work to prep for your interview. This is where it really happens. In addition to actually writing out the questions and writing out the answers. I think you know almost every question they're going to ask you. Make a laundry list. Make a laundry list also of the scary questions, and then craft an amazing response. A response that's not defensive, but moves the obstacle out of the way, overcomes the objection. Let's take another look at how to prep for interview. This is the SelfRecruiter interview checklist. This is another way to think about prepping. Complete your research on the job, the company culture, read every word of the website. I sure hope as part of reading every word of the website, you learn how to copy and paste and go, oh, some wonderful language, copy, paste, and grab some of their phraseology of how they speak about themselves or their employees. Integrate that into your language for the interview, and suddenly they hear their own employees speaking to them. They go, John seems like a good fit for us for some reason. Yes. So that a little bit of research. The job itself, we get distracted by that job posting, which I already talked about. Why don't you just put that down for a second? You think you're right for this job? I bet you could write a better job description than that one. Ignore that one for the moment. Write a thorough, better job description based on how you view the job. Then glance back at the job posting. Maybe a couple things get grabbed from there. Maybe also look at the competitors, which could be competitors in your own company, like who has held this job in the past. I can look on LinkedIn to see everybody that's ever held this job before, and how do they talk about that job? What about over at the actual competitors? What about the people holding the same job over there? What do they say about their job? Even if it's done differently at the competitor, everyone that's held it before. You've done your research prepping for the role. You've also looked at the competitors at the competitor companies. You'd be transformed just in your ability to hold that conversation together. Company culture, well, good luck on that one. You're going to have to discover that along the way, and you may not even understand it until you're fully on board inside that company. Needs analysis, we talked a lot about this. Do it early in your meetings, really before you answer a single question would be my advice. Behave. Watch your body language. Your body language can speak volumes about you. So let's really watch that. And I know that we're very, very eager. So a lot of times we're like, oh, I'm so eager. I'm like, okay, you're like one of those statues that follows me around the room wherever I go. Maybe you can occasionally look away to speak and come back and give something else, and maybe occasionally a little away and come back. You have to not creep them out on the body language. So let's be aware of that. Has a lot of effect. Dress like you are a success. Now, I really don't care what we wear in our work life. I'll just say you can't see below chest level on today's broadcast. So you're assuming the rest of my outfit, which would be an incorrect assumption. A little bit of how people judge things. I was out this morning doing exercise, some running tights, 5-finger shoes, t-shirt, everything else. And not all of that gear got changed. But you know what? If I showed up here looking like that, you wouldn't be listening to my advice. You'd be detached. So you have to look like the product on the very best day. So look like $1 million. This is the one time. Even if they told you didn't have to dress up for the interview. Oh, by the way, we're just casual here. You don't have to dress up. And then you show up like, oh, didn't you? No, you didn't. You could just be casual. It's like, oh, I have a meeting just a little bit after ours. And I thought, I might as well be dressed for both. I wonder who that meeting is a little bit after this one. Another interview, very likely. So yes, you create competition even from showing up looking like $1 million. That is the one time you can outmaneuver the competitor very, very quickly. Are you listening? I'm going to give you an awful lot to think about today. You'll forget to actually listen. Your job is just to process all that we're thinking about strategically, but also like a sponge to listen and filter constantly for ideas and nuance and what's not being said that I might want to respond back to. Sell yourself. A lot of us think about the fact that we're there to understand whether or not this may be the right next opportunity for us. Absolutely, absolutely. That's part of the evaluation. However, don't let them see it. This is like a date. If you went out on a date, blind date, it's a prearranged. Maybe it's one of those swipe dates. I have no idea. But you're out on a date, the first time you're meeting the person, and the whole time you're a little standoffish, a little skeptical. You're searching to figure out whether they're the right person. I don't think there's any chemistry going to be developed here with that kind of like, I'm just checking the world out attitude. You have to be all in. So you're there to sell yourself. So make sure you understand why they're exciting, what's going on with them, how you can help them. It's really just a little bit of shift in the story to sell yourself. Would you like more money? I'll give you a hint. I'd like more money too. There's nothing wrong with liking more money. We misunderstand how to get more money in job search. Here is the secret. Don't talk about money. To which my clients go, but when do I? Is there something unclear here? Don't talk about money. But your job is to avoid discussion of money like the plague. And that means I have to watch those application forms and all that kind of stuff that asks inappropriate questions to disclose. We have to sidestep all of that. And we have to learn how to verbally sidestep if they corner us and ask us. So conceptually, it's as simple as the earlier time that they think about a number and you, it gets very difficult to change that number dramatically. If you can delay them thinking about you and some number until you have multiple discussions or multiple discussion points, at least in the same discussion, then hopefully when they do think of a number of you, they'll think of a very different starting number. So that's why we have to sidestep and avoid that and just get them to fall in love with our skill set, get them to imagine they can't move this team forward without us. Now, let me give you a little bit of insight into how to handle this when it comes up. You may get trapped and they might go, oh, John, what are you looking for financially? Or what are your financial needs? Or what are your compensation needs? Or what salary you're looking for? A lot of different ways to say it. That's all expected, desired, future salary. Let me rephrase that question. How little can I pay you? Because that's the question. I don't care how nicely it's said. That's the question. Wouldn't you be a little indignant if someone asked you, how little can I pay you? Excuse me? This doesn't even make sense. So when someone says, the future salary expectation or what you're looking for, all that, says it has to be like a surprise to you. Like I didn't even think of it. So you're gonna have to sell this one. Oh, gosh, I don't really know. I'm very open, very open. And then you segue. To me, what it's about is really finding the right home for my career. Magical phrase. I hope you wrote that down. And then right back to them like a date, which is so why I'm so interested in this role. I think this is a phenomenal role that I could add a lot of value. Not that you can do well, but you can add a lot of value to. Always a slight angle that will help them. That simple deflection, by the way, will cut off a third of the people, shockingly, that will not be brave enough to ask you again. I'm like, really? That tiny little like horse shooing flies off the end of their back end, that got rid of a third of the people? Yep. Third of the people won't be brave enough to ask again. 2/3 coming right back after you. Now, the 2/3 coming right back after you, it tends to be a more, let me charm, disarm you, problem solve, almost like they're rolling up their sleeves and maybe grabbing the pencil to sharpen the point, to look at some figures, maybe coming around the desk to help you. It's like, oh, I just need an idea. I just need a ballpark. I won't hold you to it. Liar, pants on fire. They're trying to get you to disclose how little to pay you. Don't do it. So to me, this second time, more friendly, helpful stuff, I have to put my foot down a little more firmly and just say, I don't know what to say to you. I'm certainly, as I said, very open. It really is about finding the right home for my career. And then we have an epiphany moment and we give them a recommendation. I'd say, make me the best offer that you can, and I'm sure it will be fine. Pause. If they make you the very best offer that they can, I'm sure it will be fine. I'm also very, very sure they will almost never make you the very best offer that they can. They almost endlessly tend to lowball on offers. It's just a process. It's the way it works. Yeah, offer them this. Let's see. We can always go up. That's typically how it works on the back end. So I want you to think about when they give you this thing, how are you going to react? How are you going to negotiate? How are you going to sidestep? So, on this one, it's simply, I'm not sure what to tell you, but make me the best offer that you can. I'm sure it'll be fine. Then you're going to have to define it. So after you say, I'm sure it'll be fine, you leave a long, pregnant pause, which they could step into verbally, and you may have to step right on them, but you're going to have to complete your thought of definition of what a fair offer is, because you think fair offer is this number, and they think fair offer is down here. We got a disconnect. And so you go, oh, just make me a fair offer. I'm sure it'll be fine. Of course, based on the responsibilities for that role. Pause again. That's only foundational. That's the cookie cutter interchangeable piece. If you only say that, I'm paying you less for you. A little pregnant pause after I say that. And then you go, and of course, those additional things that I bring to the table. It's not only the foundational, whatever baseline that you might be offering, but you're also going to have to sweeten that for me is what we're getting at here. So think about what you can here and move this forward. Most times, though, your job, if you can avoid it, is to never let the offer come up at all. In a perfect world, what you would really like is to have them blindly extend you an offer without having discussed in advance. Good, bad, or ugly really doesn't matter, because in my view, you cannot begin to negotiate until after you receive that offer in hand. So even if they verbally give that to you, and let's imagine it's a stinky offer, below where you find exceptional, you're not excited about it, and they go, oh, John, we'd like to extend an offer to have you join the team for so-and-so. Oh, really? Excited. And they say some stinky number. I'm like, oh, what's the start date? Now, they said a stinky number, and John's first reaction, excited, was, oh, did they mention a start date? That's distraction technique. Oh, John moved right to start date. He must be fine with that number. I certainly never said I was fine with that stinky number. I'm not fine with that stinky number, but I distracted them by moving to start date. And they say, oh, the 31st. Oh, fantastic. Sounds like everything's perfect, right? And then you have to get that offer in writing. You have to get the ring on the finger before you negotiate the diamond. So right away I go, oh, when would I be able to get the offer in writing? Now, if I simply stop my question there, that may take several days, may take till next week, certainly probably not before this holiday weekend coming up. But if I understand that your job is to sell, persuade, and define, then if I ask for something on a timeline, I have to suggest a timeline that they can react to. Oh, when would I be able to get the written offer? Would I be able to get that this afternoon? Because if they get that to me this afternoon, maybe they can get an offer out to me and we can close this deal. Maybe we can wrap it up before the holiday weekend type thing. So stay in control, get the offer. Only once you get the offer, that's when you negotiate, and you may call them back the very next day. Because of course, if you're negotiating, you tend to do the overnight piece. I call them back the very next day and I get Jack, Jim, or Jill on the phone and go, it's John Crant. My gosh, good morning to you. Don't you know how to cause some sleepless nights? Thank you, by the way, for getting that offer out to me yesterday. It's a demonstration of how I will interact with them when I work there. Also, how smoothly all of this is. And they believe they're hearing a yes, we're done. I'm giving them everything toward the yes without giving them the yes. So it's like, oh, by the way, the start date's great. Everything else is great. I have to say, I'm really very excited by the level of value that I'll bring. And then we segue to a very deep confessional tone. Grew up Catholic. Know all about that. And I simply go, oh, but I have to ask you. Almost like it becomes hushed because I wouldn't want someone to overhear this part. It's like, but I have to ask you, is there any room on that offer? Here's one of those questions that you have to answer as well without letting them answer. They're going to desire to answer, which will probably be, oh, no, not really. It's like anything other than no, not really. That's all we have budget. Everything else means yes, if you can justify it. So you simply go, gosh, I have to ask, is there any room in that offer? The only reason I'm asking is I'm just trying to keep myself and my family financially whole. Magical phrase. You should write that one down as well. I would hate to come in to this role distracted with financial concerns. I'd hate for you to come into this role distracted from financial concerns too. I want your eye on the ball. So those are reasons to find a way to solve the money problem. It really comes down to as simple as this. If they think you want the money, they do not want to give it to you. If they think you need the money, they try to find a way to give it to you. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need negotiation help. I do it with my clients all the time. Don't talk about money. That's the simplest solution. Time to get it right. Well, a couple timing issues. If this is a physical interview in person, you need to get to that area about 30 minutes in advance, not to their lobby, not waiting for them there, but into the area, get to a park bench or get to a coffee shop, review your notes, get everything centered, get yourself relaxed and energized, caffeinated and fed correctly, the right calories and all that kind of stuff, so you don't get thrown off in your meeting. And then time it so you can get through building security and maybe even floor security and arrive in their office's lobby maybe 5 to 15 minutes prior to the interview. If you have an 11 o'clock interview, you show up at 10:35, that is not a good thing. I don't care what you think. John, your 11 o'clock is here. Oh, my day's already out of control. I can't leave you sitting out there 25 minutes. It's too long. So now my day's already out of control. I have to put on a happy face and I have to come out to, oh, so good to see you. You know, I'll be out right after 11 or just shortly thereafter, but looking forward to our conversation. Oh, you're messing up my day already because you thought about you. Oh, it'll show eagerness. You didn't think about the real problem. The other timing issue is if you're not going to negotiate this offer, you need to accept that now. This is not okay to accept that offer overnight. Well, it is, but it's not really. You're messing up goodwill momentum. It's like the orchestra building toward the crescendo of the cymbals, but we stop just before the crescendo and they lose all the energy. That makes sense if you're not going to accept that offer and you need to negotiate. But if you're going to accept it, why would you not take that win and give it to them so that you have a much better outcome? Time to get it right. Next step, opportunity. The whole time talk about the opportunity, what you can do for them, why you're so excited. And last piece is to ask for the job. It's not so much like, I want this job, give me this job. It's more you get to the end of the discussion and you go, wow, Jack, Jim, Jill, what an amazing role. I'm thrilled by the value that I'll bring stepping into this role. Ooh, I just verbally projected myself right into the role. What's our next step? Now, even if I know my next step is to be walked down the hall to meet Sally, well, we're going to walk you down the hall to meet Sally is the next one. Yes, I knew that part. But they need to hear, ooh, I'm excited. What's next? That's asking for the job. Now, as I did mention at the first part of our prep today, the real homework is preparing the answers to the questions you might be asked. Why don't you make a list of questions? Imagine you're the manager having to source this individual that you're trying to get hired for. You're the one that's going to make the decision. Well, what questions would you ask? Write those down because you'll do a much better job in your field. Then add 3 self-recruiter questions to it that'll kind of help round it out. The first one is, tell me why I should hire you over all others that I see. Now, you're not actually likely to be asked this way. It's kind of thrown down the gauntlet, but I sure hope the answer to this question is mixed into the other answers that you give. Next question is, tell me why my work life will get easier or better if I hire you. Definitely probably not going to ask you this question this way, but you sure better have these answers mixed into your answers. Because if I feel my work life will get easier or better if I hire you, I am hiring you. It's that simple because it's never about you. It's always about me. It's a date. So don't forget that piece of it. Of course, the last one you've heard many times across all my lectures, and that is, why is it going to be the very best business decision I'll make today if I choose to hire you? Now, they could literally ask you this, but you sure better make sure the answer to this is mixed into your other answers. Practice makes perfect. Very few people can do it off the cuff the way I do it, but I've done it for many years. So you want to think about getting with a friend or getting with a good coach. I know a good coach if you need one. And practice till you're blue in the face. You have to own your story and not be searching for your story in the interview. You have to embody your story. Follow up in the interview process is very critical. You know, the most surprising thing to me in all my time in recruiting was how few and far between the thank you notes were. I'm like, almost no one sends a thank you note. Now, I have to say, when I give my in-person lectures and I have a 60, 70 person audience, I'll have multiple people that will claim to send thank you notes. I'm like, okay, well, the room is full of unicorns today, because I can tell you, being on the other end, no one sends a thank you note. It's like a statistical anomaly. Would you like to be a standout? Simply send a thank you note. First off, let me help you. Please never again, for the rest of eternity, thank someone for their time. If you thank someone for their time, you've now positioned yourself as subservient to them. Your time is valuable, just like their time is valuable. So thank them for something else. I want to thank you for your great insights, for the great, wonderful discussion, for the light you were able to shed over on this topic. Really enjoyed all of our conversation. Thank them for something meaningful that will kind of help. But the thank you note process is also one where you can solve problems before they even turn into the reason they don't hire you. Now, I live in New York City. We quite frequently see the sidewalks broken up with some jackhammers. There's 2 blocks from my house. They're replacing sidewalks yesterday. And, the guys are out there, they take all that debris away, then they pour the new cement, and they're out there with the little squeegees, and they get it all perfect. And out runs a little boy, and right through the middle of it, and everyone's pissed off, right? But the guys with the squeegees are right there. They'll fix it right now. It'll be fine. But if that happened 5 minutes after the guys left, well, they're still going to fix it, but they're going to have to come back tomorrow. And now they're going to have to file down whatever came above the horizon. They're going to have to fill in the little foot marks, and they will fix it. They will fix it. But if you're aware of it, you'll be walking down that path 10 years from now with your friend going, oh, this is so interesting. You see this little pattern here? You know what it really is? Tell them the whole story. You'll never get rid of that residue. So your thank you note process is a way you get to those items that are of concern before they harden into the reason they do not hire you. Now, how we do this is self-diagnosis. So don't go home after your interview. What you want to go is to the nearest park bench, your coffee shop, whatever. Do an information dump. Every tangential thought you are having, there's some reason you're having it, capture it right now. How was the job different? How was the person different? Every single thing that you could come up with. And then after the information dump, or the debrief, which is a little bit of a self-interrogation, a grilling, a cross-examination, after that part of it, we're going to get to one final tough question. And it's a little demoralizing. That's why we save it to the end. If they don't move forward with me, if they don't move me toward offer, what's the reason? By the way, as you're diagnosing what happened in your interview, you've got to turn some fluorescent light of honesty. Good, bad, ugly. What went well? What didn't? Where did I put my foot in my mouth? I would like to repeat things and also avoid things in the future. So we have to kind of think about all those things. So back to the tough question. If they don't move me forward, what's the reason going to be? This is not one that requires analysis. You may analyze it first, but you're going to be off. What we're after is a little bit of the, hit the nerve and the bone just reacts. Your gut feeling. If you do this after every single interview, very quickly, your gut feeling will tell you, like, they're not going to hire me because of area A. Well, was area A important? Yes. Did you talk about it? No, I was afraid. I've only done 2 projects. Yeah, I talked about this earlier. So even in my thank you note, I can thank them for the great discussion, the insights, everything else, and then I can segue to a new paragraph. We didn't have an opportunity to talk about area A, where I've worked on projects such as this or like that. If you'd like to discuss those, reach out on my cell at any time. This works. It actually saved one of my promotions earlier in my career. I was running the #1 department. We had 121 locations for the company I was working for. And my particular department in the location was the #1 location in the entire country, #1 department. #4 store in the country, #1 location. And so my store's manager went up to be country manager of Canada. And of course, John's thinking, oh, this is a big monster store. I should just rise to the throne as the general manager, because I already have the #1 department in the whole country. And so I went in for interview, and this was all before my recruiting time and all of that many years ago. And I'd hired and fired people, didn't know what I was doing, but I hired and fired many people. Good talker, essentially. And one of them really liked me, my regional manager, who got me and certainly got my #1 department in the whole country. And the other regional manager, who I didn't report to, who didn't quite get me. I don't know. I don't really understand John. I worked for his sector, actually the first year that I was with the company. And what he really wanted was some minions to go out and party and drink with. It's like, and I was a little bit older than the rest of the folks. And it's like, I'm here because I need the work, not because I need a social life. And so, yeah, that's why he didn't quite get me. But do you get my P&L? Number one in the country. And so I go back to my location and I call my spy. Very good to have a spy in headquarters. I call my spy. Oh, yeah, I think it went pretty well. No. They're in there arguing about you right now, something about your vision for the store. I went through the entire interview and I never expressed my vision for the store. Ouch. And immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, how could I be so silly? And I shot them off a very quick thank you note while they're in arguing about me. Thank you for the great discussion, the insights. By the way, we didn't have a lot of opportunity to talk about my vision for the store. If you'd like to discuss that, don't hesitate to reach out on my cell at any time. Here's the number. Click send, and in a panic, I am bullet pointing out my vision quickly. Never called, got the job. It's solved. Look, here's a vision. Here's a vision. He can't change anything anyway, but here's a vision. Solve your problems before they turn into the reason they don't hire you. Close it properly. I'm very excited by what we discussed, and I can't wait for our next step. That's, of course, asking for the job. Just remember, all things being equal, which they really never are, people are hired by chemistry. So you have to put the right amount of work on chemistry and engagement and how you build that, how you make that kind of love connection, which means you're dying to tell your story, but it has to be angled about them. You still have to be real. You still have to be genuine. You know, I am actually shy and introverted. Am I not being real and genuine now? Of course I'm being real and genuine. This is an aspect of me too. You don't have to be confessional, but you do have to be real and genuine. Show the interest. Let's give you the video interview tips here, and then we're going to wrap for today. A lot of our interviews happen over video, and if you do nothing but do what you normally do on video, you're not going to look very great. If you take the extra effort to do it the right way, you'll look much better. Let's get to the first thing. You may have figured out already, and maybe it's just my surroundings, but I am standing. You might go, well, John, why aren't you sitting for this lecture? It'd be awfully hard to have much energy if John were sitting and stationary versus if you simply free yourself up. I'm standing in about 1 square foot of space this entire time for the last hour. See, it's all possible. It's all possible. So 1 square foot of space, so I know the framework I can be in. I can move my body around. I can be relaxed. I can be engaging. Also, naturally, because I'm standing, it allows me to drop my diaphragm muscle that runs across the middle of your body, just below your lungs, controls all of your breath. Also, then that allows my resonance to go a little bit deeper. Throat can open up, easier to make a chemistry connection. Now, your video interview, yep, it can be Zoom, Meet, whatever technology they choose. So just think about whether everything's scheduled, unscheduled, in person. All of those provide a little bit different opportunity. Your job is to somehow get through the video conference, which is really what's required today to close the deal. Now, it's COVID time still. I hope it goes away very, very soon, but we're going to have to do most of this over Zoom sometimes, or Meet, or whatever the technology is. You're going to have to win the race. So to help you, before I show you my setup, I'm going to show you my complete setup here. I pulled a few Zoom screens right off the internet, so careful where you put those. And I want to comment on what I see. So chemistry and confidence win the day. That wins the race. So the real question is, do we see it here? I don't see it here, so they don't win chemistry. They don't win confidence. In fact, I'm left thinking, do they even understand that this is a job interview? Because they don't work for a baseball team or in the sports field. Therefore, what they're wearing isn't really appropriate. That's not going to work, along with terrible lighting. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it here? Do we see it here? You know, I don't see it here either. And several problems here, and I've seen this in many Zoom meetings, is failure to understand your setup and lighting. If I look at you with bright lighting behind you, I can't see a single thing. And if you crouch over, it makes you small and really something that someone might put their thumb down onto. So that really doesn't work. We need to be able to see you, not the sky. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do I see it? Do I see it? I don't see it. I'm pretty sure this person thinks they're confident, but It undermines your confidence if you stand hovering above the camera. So I have to look up your nose. I don't need to see your nose. I don't need to see your ceiling. Do you notice you're looking at John? You're not looking up John's nose. You might look up John's nose, but you get the idea here. So that doesn't really work as well. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it here? Do we see it? I don't get the chemistry here, but you know what? I do give the confidence. I give the confidence vote. I'll go ahead and give it right before I take it away. Because while you may be very comfortable with these headphones and this boom mic, this is not a gaming session. And the headphones and boom mic make me feel like you really don't have confidence. And you know what? That selection of image in the background doesn't work either, because while it's a very pretty nice image, the image keeps pulling me away from you. It doesn't add focus to you. I keep wanting to look at the image rather than you, because I have to look at this darn boom mic. How about this setup? Chemistry and confidence win the race. Well, you know what? Even though there's a little bit of a harsher look on the face here, I give the chemistry vote and I give the confidence vote here. Actually, they're framed pretty nicely, with the exception of this giant distraction on the wall directly behind their head. So they've allowed themselves to get upstaged by what I keep trying to figure out, like, what am I seeing just behind your head? I think you get the idea that I'm not being upstaged by my actual stage. Really, really important. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it here? Do we see it here? You know what? I'll give the chemistry vote. I'll give the confidence vote. I see it here. But we have the same kind of a problem here. Now, I do like the little bit of curvature of the background. Problem is that created reflection on all of those items, which keep pulling the eye. And also, my brain keeps going, what's really in those pictures? I want to zoom in and see. So again, this person, while they won those votes, they allow themselves again to be upstaged. You are the center of the universe here in these interviews. Chemistry and confidence win the race. I definitely see it here. Definitely see it here. But you know what I don't like here is the Princess Leia headphones. I don't need giant headphone buns. You may like them. You may like them. I like to listen that way. Well, I like to listen with headphones too, but that's not okay during the interview. Take those things out. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it here? Do we see it here? I do. I do. But even these little more smaller headphones don't work. Get rid of the headphones and get them out of your way. It's a distraction, which really undermines confidence. But let's talk about this background here. This background actually is a winner. I know that's a staged photo that they grabbed, but look at what they did. They grabbed a photo that had depth, adds focus to them, is interesting, and yet is not a distraction, and they're well lit. Kudos. Very, very nice, but not with those medium headphones. Let's get rid of those things. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it? Do we see it? You know what? I'll give the chemistry vote. I'll give the confidence vote. Actually, of all the ones we've seen so far, this is the very best one. On the left, a little bit of framing with the way the window edging works. On the right, a little bit of framing with that picture that is interesting but not too distracting. I get strong visuals for the person. Now, it's still a little down toward the camera, which I'd prefer not to have, and it's not really well lit on the one side. But all other things out of the way, this one actually is a pretty good one. This one's the winner. So let's just show you my video setup here, and then we'll wrap for today. So not maybe as glamorous as you might think. Well, let me show you my other half's work from home setup first, because they do video conferencing as well. Now, most people set it up this way. You've got some sort of, maybe there's a bright light window. If you can handle that, lights you well. But here again, the light may be great, but you may need to add light to it. It may not give you the right tone. You might have to pull some of the drapes and use one of the light rings. Those light rings usually have color adjustment wheels on them to change the shading ever so little. You also very likely need to elevate your camera. You notice I'm speaking to camera, not down to camera. So all of this probably needs to be elevated. If you'd like to sound great, you probably need a condenser microphone. Oh, I know some of the laptops have some pretty good mics these days, but they cannot touch a condenser microphone. This is the microphone I'm speaking on right now. So you might want to think about how you might integrate that. Now, here is the actual setup I'm standing in front of here. As you can see, this is set up in one of the bedrooms. I have a green screen directly against the wall. So literally I'm standing like a foot from the wall here. And yep, that is my ironing board with a bunch of Amazon boxes stood up to create the right level, to get the laptop to the right height, put the mic, put everything around, and light boxes, and you suddenly realize that a lot of effort needs to go into it. Here's a reverse look. So yes, I'm literally standing in this environment with about 1 square foot to move around, and yet you've seen what you've seen over the last hour. You control the environment, you control perception. Make sure you have the correct light all the way around. My eyes are pretty sensitive. I don't like direct light unless I step in front of these lights, and then you have to trick your brain to learn to love it. Now, you have to have a place for something like this or something like this if you're using a remote, all those things. Maybe even for notes, or you got to have a place to put my Kleenex type thing. All that you may need to have other accompanying materials around this. Yeah, that's my literal setup. And you can see how easy it is once it's up and in place and functional. Well, that's interview intervention for today. I really appreciate you guys joining in. There's a lot of different things we have to consider in this pandemic world as we move from pandemic toward endemic eventually. The concept is simply take the control back for yourself. Take control of the discussion. Understand it's a date, and your whole time in front of them is to be excited about them. So make sure you understand what is it that really thrills you about what you see going on, why you could add value to them, why you could help their team succeed. All those things together will help your interview be a great success. If you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm right over my SelfRecruiter website. You can look under the services tab, and you can see all the different things that I offer. If you need to chat before knowing which package is really the right one for you, send me a quick message and we will talk. Thank you guys for tuning in today, and I hope you have a great holiday weekend, and we'll see you soon. Take care.